Walt Disney's Enchanted is a 2007 American live-action/animated musical fantasy romantic comedy film directed by Kevin Limey and written by William Kelly. The film stars Amy Adams, Patrick Dempsey, James Marsden, Timothy Spall, Idina Menzel, Rachel Cuddy, and Susan Sarandon. It focuses on an archetypal Disney princess to be exiled from her animated world into the live world of Manhattan, New York, United States of America. The film is both a homage to and a self-parody of Walt Disney's animated features, making numerous references to past works through the combination of live-action filmmaking, traditional animation, and computer-generated imagery. It also marks the return of traditional animation to a Walt Disney feature film after the company's decision to move entirely to computer animation in 2004. Composer Alan Menken and lyricist Stephen Schwartz, who had written songs for previous Walt Disney films, wrote and produced the songs of Enchanted, with Menken also composing its score. The animated sequences were produced at James Baxter Animation in Pasadena. Filming of the live-action segments took place around Manhattan, New York, USA. Walt Disney's Enchanted was first released on Saturday, October 20, 2007 at the London Film Festival, before its widescreen was later released on Wednesday, November 21, 2007 in the US of A. It was critically acclaimed, well received, and has officially established Adams as a leading lady, and earned more than $340 million plus worldwide at the box office. It won 3 Saturn Awards, Best Fantasy Film, Best Actress for Adams and Best Music for Menken. Enchanted also received 2 nominations at the 65th Golden Globe Awards and 3 Best Original Song nominations at the 80th Academy Awards. This is the first film to be distributed by Walt Disney Studios Motion Pictures after the Walt Disney Company, as well as the American Broadcasting Companies, stopped using its Buena Vista Pictures distribution brand. A sequel, titled Disenchanted, is in development and is expected to premiere on Disney Plus at Thanksgiving of 2022.
In the animated fairy tale kingdom of Andalasia, Nerissa, the corrupt and ruthless queen and a dark sorceress, schemes to protect her claim to the throne, which she will lose once her stepson, Prince Edward, finds his true love and marries. She enlists her loyal servant Nathaniel to keep Edward distracted by hunting trolls. Giselle, a young woman, dreams of meeting a prince and experiencing a happily ever after. She, her chipmunk friend Pip, and all of the animals from the forest work together to make a homemade statue of her true love she saw in a dream. Edward hears Giselle singing and sets off to find her. Nathaniel frees a captured troll to get rid of Giselle, but Edward rescues her. She and Edward are instantly attracted to each other and plan to be married the following day. Disguised as an old hag, Nerissa intercepts Giselle on her way to the wedding and pushes her into a well, where Giselle is magically transformed into a live-action version of herself and transported to New York's Times Square Manhattan in our real reality. Giselle, frightened and confused, quickly becomes lost and homeless. Meanwhile, Robert, a widowed divorce lawyer, prepares to propose to his girlfriend Nancy. Robert and his young daughter Morgan encounter Giselle on their way home, and Robert begrudgingly allows Giselle to stay the night in their apartment at the insistence of Morgan, who believes Giselle is a princess. Pip and Edward embark on a rescue mission to the real world, where they too are turned into live-action versions of themselves. Pip, now real chipmunk, no longer has the ability to speak, and only communicates through squeaks. Nerissa sends Nathaniel to follow and impede Edward. Nerissa appears to Nathaniel and gives him 3 poisoned apples that will put whoever eats one to sleep until the clock strikes 12, after which they will die. Meanwhile, after Giselle summons birds, insects and vermin to clean Robert's apartment, Nancy arrives to take Morgan to school. She meets Giselle and leaves, assuming Robert wasn't faithful. Robert is initially upset but spends the day with Giselle, knowing she is vulnerable in the city. Giselle questions Robert about his relationship with Nancy and helps the pair reconcile by sending Nancy flowers and an invitation to a costume ball at the Woolworth building. Edward locates Giselle at Robert's apartment. While Edward is eager to take Giselle home to Andalusia and marry her, she suggests that they should first go on a date and get to know each other better. Giselle promises to return to Andalusia after the ball that night, which Robert and Nancy also attend. Nerissa decides to come to the real world and kill Giselle herself after Nathaniel fails twice to poison her. At the ball, Robert and Giselle dance romantically with each other. Giselle and Edward then prepare to depart, but Giselle feels depressed at leaving Robert behind. Nerissa appears, as the old hag, and offers the last poisoned apple to Giselle, promising that it will erase her sorrowful memories. Giselle takes a bite, falls unconscious, and is plunged into a sleep with mere minutes to live. Nerissa attempts to escape with Giselle's body but is confronted by Edward. Nathaniel, seeing that Nerissa never cared about him, reveals her plot. Robert realizes that true love's kiss is the only force powerful enough to break the apple's curse. Edward's kiss fails to wake Giselle, and so he and Nancy prompt Robert to kiss her instead. When Robert kisses her, she awakens. Infuriated, Nerissa transforms into a dragon and takes Robert hostage. Giselle takes Edward's sword and pursues Nerissa to the top of the building, as the dragon intends to drop Robert to his death. Pip comes to support Giselle and helps defeat Nerissa by causing Nerissa to fall to the streets below with his weight, and then explode into dust. Robert almost falls as well, but Giselle manages to catch him, and they share another kiss. A happy new life unfolds for everyone, showing Edward and Nancy falling in love and marrying in Andalusia, henceforth becoming king and queen, while Nathaniel, who stays in New York, USA, and Pip, who returns to Andalusia, each write successful autobiographies based on their experiences in the real world. Giselle starts a very popular fashion design business and forms a happy family with Robert and Morgan in New York, US of A.
The initial script of Enchanted, written by William Kelly, was officially bought by Walt Disney's Touchstone Pictures and Sonnenfels/Josephson Productions for the reported sum of $450,000 in September 1997. The script was written for 3 whole years, but it was literally thought to be unsuitable for Walt Disney Pictures, because it was a racier R-rated movie, inspired by the adulterous comedy movies in both of the 1980s and the 1990s, such as Fast Times at Ridgemont High and American Pie. The first draft of the script had Giselle being mistaken for a stripper when she arrives in Manhattan, NY, US of A. To the frustration of Bill Kelly, the screenplay was rewritten several times, first by Rita Shio and then by Todd Alcott. The film was initially scheduled to be released in 2002 with Rob Marshall as director, but he withdrew due to creative differences between the producers and him. In 2001, director John Turteltaub was set to direct the film, but he left soon after, later working with Disney and Jerry Bruckheimer in the National Treasure franchise. Adam Shankman became the film's director in 2000, while Bob Schooley and Mark McCorkle were hired by Disney to rewrite the script once again. At the time, Disney considered offering the role of Giselle to Kate Hudson or Reese Witherspoon. However, the project did not take off. In Wednesday, May 25, 2005, the Variety have now reported that Kevin Lima had been hired as director and William Kelly had returned to the project to write a new version of the script. Lima worked with Bill Kelly in the script to combine the main plot of Enchanted with the idea of a loving homage to Disney's heritage. He created visual storyboard printouts that covered the story of Enchanted from beginning to end, which filled an entire floor of a production building. After Lima showed them to Dick Cook, the chairman of the Walt Disney Studios, he received the green light for the project and a budget of 85 million American bucks. Lima began designing the world of Andalusia and storyboarding the movie, before a cast was chosen to play the characters. After the actors were hired, he was involved in making the final design of the movie, which made sure the animated characters look like their real-life counterparts.
Enchanted is one of the first feature lengths of Walt Disney's live-action/traditional animation hybrid of pure nostalgia, since Touchstone Pictures, who framed Roger Rabbit in 1988, though the traditionally animated characters do not interact in the live environment in the same method as they did in Roger Rabbit. However, there are some scenes where live-action characters share the screen with two-dimensional animated characters, for example, a live Nathaniel communicating with a cel-drawn Nerissa, whom is in a cooking pot. The film uses two aspect ratios. It begins in 2.35:1 when the Walt Disney Pictures logo and Enchanted storybook are shown, and then switches to a smaller 1.85:1 aspect ratio for the first animated sequence. The film switches back to 2.35:1 when it becomes live action and never switches back, even for the remainder of the animated sequences. When this movie was aired on televised networks, the beginning of the movie, minus the logo and opening credits, was shown in the pure boxed 4:3 aspect ratio. The remainder of the movie was shown in the 16:9 aspect ratio, when it becomes live action. Lima oversaw the direction of both the live action and animation sequences, which were being produced at the same time. Enchanted took almost 2 years to complete. The animation took about a year to finish, while the live scenes, which commenced filming on location in Manhattan, New York, US of A during the summer of 2006, and were completed during the animation process, were shot in 72 whole days.
Out of the film's 107 minutes of running time, 10 of the approximately 14 minutes of animation are at the beginning of the film. Lima tried to cram every single piece of Walt Disney iconic imagery that he could into the first 10 minutes, which were done in traditional cel animation, as a tribute to past one of Walt Disney's fairy tale films such as Sleeping Beauty, Cinderella, and Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. It was the first Walt Disney film theatrically released in the United States of America to feature traditional cel animation since Alan Alexander Mills' Winnie the Pooh Bear's Heffalump movie. This film, although quite different in terms of plot from any previous Disney film, also contained obvious homages to other Disney films of the distant past, such as Old Yeller, The Shaggy Dog, Swiss Family Robinson, Bon Voyage, and Savage Sam. As most of Disney's traditional animation artists were laid off after the computer graphics boom of the late 1990s, the 14 minutes of animation were not done in-house but by the independent Pasadena-based company James Baxter Animation, founded by former Disney animator Baxter. Although Lima wanted the animation to be a bit nostalgic, he wanted Enchanted to have a style of its own. Baxter's team decided to use Art Nouveau as a starting point. For Giselle, the hand-drawn animated character had to be a cross between Amy Adams and a classic Disney princess, and not a caricature. Seeing Giselle as a forest girl, an innocent nymph with flowers in her hair and a bit of a hippie, the animators wanted her to be flowing, with her hair and clothes delicate. For Prince Edward, Baxter's team worked the hardest in him to make him look like the actor, because princes in these kinds of movies are usually so bland. Many prototypes were made for Nerissa, as Baxter's team wanted her face to look like Susan Sarandon, and the costumes had to align closely to the live-action design. To maintain continuity between the two media, Lima brought in costume designer Mona May during the early stages of the film's production so the costumes would be aligned in both the animated and live-action worlds. He also shot some live-action footage of Amy Adams as Giselle for the animators to use as reference, which also allowed the physical movement of the character to match in both worlds. Test scenes completed by the animators were shown to the actors, allowing them to see how their animated selves would move.
The principal photography began in April 2006 and ended in July. Because of the sequence setting, the live-action scenes were filmed in New York, USA. However, shooting in New York, US became problematic, as it was in a constant state of new stores, scaffolding and renovation. The first scene in New York, US of A, which features Giselle emerging from a manhole in the middle of Times Square, was filmed on location in the center of the square. because of the difficulties in controlling the crowd. While filming in Times Square, general pedestrians were featured in the scene with hired extras placed in the immediate foreground. Similarly, a crowd gathered to watch as James Marsden and Timothy Spall filmed their scenes in Times Square. However, the scene Lima found the most challenging to shoot was the musical number, That's How You Know, in Central Park, Manhattan. The 5-minute scene took 2 weeks and 3 days to finish due to the changing weather, which allowed only 7 sunny days for the scene to be filmed. The filming was also hampered at times by Patrick Dempsey's fans. The scene was choreographed by John O'Connell, who had worked on Moulin Rouge beforehand, and included 300+ extras and 150+ dancers. Many scenes were filmed at Steiner Studios, which provided the 3 large stages that Enchanted needed at the same facility. Other outdoor locations included the Brooklyn Bridge and the Paterno, an apartment building with a curved, heavily embellished, ivory-colored facade located on the corner of Riverside Drive and 116th Street, which is the residence of the film's characters Robert and Morgan.
All the costumes in the film were designed by Mona May, who had previously worked on Clueless from 1995, The Wedding Singer 1998, and The Haunted Mansion 2003, featuring Eddie Murphy. To create the costumes, May spent 1 year in pre-production working with animators and her costume department of 20 people, while she contracted with 5 outside costume shops in Los Angeles, California and Manhattan, New York, USA. She became involved in the project during the time when the animators were designing the faces and bodies of the characters, as they had to translate the costumes from 2-dimensional drawings to live-action human proportion. Her goal was to keep the designs Disney-esque to the core but bring a little bit of fashion in there and humor and make it something new. However, May admitted this was difficult, because they are dealing with iconic Disney characters who have been in the psyche of the viewing audience for so long. For the character of Giselle, her journey to becoming a real woman is reflected in her dresses, which become less fairy tale-like as the film progresses. Her wedding dress at the beginning of the film directly contrasts her modern gown at the end of the film. The wedding dress served to provide a humongous contrast to the flat drawings and to accentuate the image of a Disney princess. In order to make the waist look small, the sleeves are designed to be extremely puffy and the skirt to be as big as possible, which included a metal hoop that holds up 20 layers of petticoats and ruffles. Altogether, 11 versions of the dress were made for filming, each made of 200 yards, 183 m. of silk satin and other fabric, and weighing approximately 40 pounds, 18 kilograms. In the experience of wearing the wedding dress, Amy Adams described it as grueling, since the entire weight was on her hips, so occasionally it felt like she was in traction. Unlike Giselle, Prince Edward does not adapt to the real world, and James Marsden, who plays Edward, had only one costume designed for him. May's aim was to try not to lose Jim Marsden in the craziness of the outfit, where he still looks handsome. The costume also included padding in the chest, buttocks, and crotch, which gave Jim Marsden the same exaggerated proportions as an animated character and posture. His back is straight, the sleeves are up and never collapse. May was delighted that Lima went for something more fashion-forward with Susan Sarandon's Queen Nerissa. She decided to make her look like a runway lady, wearing something that is still Walt Disney but also high fashion, like something John Galliano or Thierry Mugler might design. Since Nerissa appears in 3 media, hand-drawn animation, live action, and computer animation, May had to make sure that the costume would be the same throughout in terms of color, shape, and texture. The costume for Nerissa consisted of a leather corset and skirt, which looked reptilian, as well as a cape. Working with the animators, May incorporated parts of the dragon's form into the costume. The cape was designed to look like wings, the layers of the skirt wrap around like a tail and a crown that would turn into horns during Nerissa's transformation into a dragon.
The film's score was written by accomplished songwriter and composer Alan Menken, who has worked on a number of Disney films previously. Fellow composer Stephen Schwartz wrote the lyrics for 6 songs, also composed by Menken. Menken and Schwartz previously worked together on the songs for Pocahontas and The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Menken became involved with the film in the early stages of the film's development and invited Schwartz to resume their collaboration. They began the songwriting process by searching for the right moments in the story in which a song moment was allowed. Schwartz found that it was easier to justify situations in which the characters would burst into songs in Enchanted than in other live-action musicals, as its concept allowed the characters to sing in a way that was completely integral to the plot of the story. The 3 songs Giselle sings contain references to earlier Disney films. The first song played in the film, True Love's Kiss, was written to be a send-up of, and an homage to, the style of those Walt Disney animated features, namely, I'm Wishing, which is from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and A Dream is a Wish Your Heart Makes, which is from Cinderella, during which Walt Disney heroines sing about the joy of being loved. It posed a challenge for Menken and Schwartz because of the many preconceptions with that number. It had to be reflective of the era of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs and Cinderella. Accordingly, Amy Adams performed the first song in an operetta style in contrast to the Broadway style of the later songs. Both the Happy Working Song and That's How You Know had also paid tributes to past Disney songs and movies. The Happy Working Song pays a lyrical homage to such songs as Whistle While You Work, from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, the Work Song, from Cinderella, A Spoonful of Sugar, which is from Mary Poppins, and Making Christmas, which is from MCA Universal's The Nightmare Before Christmas, based on the book by Tim Burton, and a musical homage to the Sherman Brothers, with a self-parodic Alan Menken-style middle eight. That's How You Know is a self-parody of Menken's compositions for his Disney features, specifically such big production numbers as Under the Sea, from The Little Mermaid, and Be Our Guest, from The Beauty and the Beast. To achieve this, Schwartz admitted he had to push it a little bit further in terms of choices of words or certain lyrics, while maintaining the classic Walt Disney sensibility. However, Menken noted that the songs he has written for Disney have always been a little tongue-in-cheek. As the film progresses, the music uses more contemporary styles, which is heard through the adult ballad So Close and the country/popular number Ever Ever After, sung by Carrie Underwood as a voiceover. Out of the 6 completed songs written and composed by Menken and Schwartz, 5 remained in the finished film. The title song, Enchanted, a duet featuring Idina Menzel and James Marsden, was the only song of Menken's and Schwartz's authorship and composition that was deleted from the movie.
The majority of the visual effects shots in Enchanted were done by Tippett Studio in Berkeley, California, USA, who contributed a total of 320 shots. These shots involved virtual sets, environmental effects and CG characters that performed alongside real actors, namely the animated animals during the Happy Working Song sequence, Pip and the Nerissa dragon during the live-action portions of the film. CIS Hollywood Studios was responsible for 36 visual effects shots, which primarily dealt with wire removals and composites. Real FX Creative Studios did 4 visual effects shots involving the pop-up book page turn transitions, while Weighted Digital did 2. And out of all of the animals that appear in the Happy Working Song sequence, the only real animals filmed in said were rats and pigeons. The real animals captured in film aided Tippett Studio in creating CG rats and pigeons, which gave dynamic performances such as having pigeons that carried brooms in their beaks and rats that scrubbed with toothbrushes. In the other hand, all the cockroaches were CG characters. Pip, a chipmunk who can talk in the second dimensional, referencing the first dimensional world of Andalasia, loses his ability to communicate through speech in the real world, so he must rely heavily on facial and body gestures. This meant the animators had to display Pip's emotions through performance as well as making him appear like a real chipmunk. The team at Tippett began the process of animating Pip by observing live chipmunks which were filmed in motion from every conceivable angle, after which they created a photorealistic chipmunk through the use of 3D computer graphics software, Maya and Ferocious. When visual effects supervisor Thomas Kellisney showed the first animation of Pip to director Kevin Lima, he was surprised that he was looking at a CG character and not reference footage. To enhance facial expressions, the modelers gave Pip eyebrows, which real chipmunks do not have. During the filming of scenes in which Pip appears, a number of ways were used to indicate the physical presence of Pip. In some occasions, a small stuffed chipmunk with a wire armature on the inside was placed in the scene. In other situations, a rod with a small marker in the end or a laser pointer would be used to show the actors and cinematographer where Pip is. And unlike him, the Nerissa dragon was allowed to be more of a fantasy character, while still looking like a living character and a classic Disney villain. The CG dragon design was loosely based on a traditional Mandarin Chinese dragon in Susan Sarandon's live-action witch. When filming the scene which sees the transformation of Nerissa from a woman into a dragon, a long pole was used to direct the extras' eye lines instead of a laser pointer. Sub-pieces were made to move back and forth in addition to having a computer-controlled lighting setup and a repeatable head in the camera that were all synchronized. In the film's final sequence, in which Nerissa climbs the Woolworth building, while clutching Robert in her claws, a green screen rig was built to hold Patrick Dempsey in order to film his face and movements. The rig was a puppeteering approach that involved a robotic arm being controlled by 3 different floor effects artists.
In February 2010, The Various has now reported that Walt Disney Pictures now planned to film a sequel with Barry Josephson and Barry Sonnenfeld producing again. Jesse Nelson was attached to write the screenplay and Ann Fletcher to direct. The Walt Disney Company and the ABC Channel US of A hoped the cast members from the first film would return and for a release as early as 2011, featuring before the 10th year of 9/11. Composer Alan Menken and James Marsden both expressed interest in returning for a sequel. In July 2014, Fletcher was announced as director for the project, while screenwriters J. David Stem and David Invice were rewriting the script. By October 2016, which is after and during the 15th year of 9/11, Adam Shankman, who was supposed to direct Enchanted, replaced Fletcher as director with the title revealed to be Disenchanted. Filming was originally scheduled to begin in the summer of 2017. In January 2018, Shankman stated that the film would feature more songs than the original but the same amount of animation. 2 months later, Shankman announced that Menken and Steven Schwartz would return to write songs for the film. In February 2020, Schwartz acknowledged that there were ongoing meetings regarding the sequel, and announced Shankman will also serve as the film's screenwriter. In March 2020, which is before the coronavirus, it was reported that the film had entered the pre-production, citation needed. April of the same year, Menken confirmed that he and Schwartz are currently co-writing the film's songs. In December 2020, Disenchanted was officially announced with Adams reprising the role of Giselle. The film will be released on Disney+. Later that month, Patrick Dempsey signed on to return as Robert and it was revealed that Disney hired Bridget Hales, Richard Lagravines, Scott Neustadter, and Michael H. Weber to work on the film's script, citation needed. In January 2021, it was reported that filming would begin in Ireland in the next few months, citation needed. In March 2021, Menken stated that Marsden and Idina Menzel would reprise their respective roles and that the role of Morgan may be recast. In April 2021, it was reported that the Seven Dwarfs would appear in the film, as well as a possible plotline and a new villain, citation needed. Shortly after this report, Maya Rudolph, Yvette Nicole Brown, and Jayma Mays joined the cast as the film's villains. The film was expected to begin principal photography on Monday, May 3, 2021 in Los Angeles, California, United States. On Thursday, May 6, 2021, Amy Adams confirmed on Instagram video that she had arrived in Northern Ireland to begin filming the sequel.
And before we end this video, if you have never heard of this film in your life, please search it up.
And if you hate this film, we can handle your opinion.